Hi, art lovers. Welcome to another episode of Meet Your Local Art Heroes. I am Juan Miguel Garcia, and we're coming to you from the set of We Love Nogales. With me today is a very special person. With us today is Lorena Taroni. Hi.
Hi.
How you doing?
I am doing good, thank you.
So here we are. This is sort of like the culmination of everything that you've been through, that has happened this year. Your involvement in the art scene. How do you feel?
I feel like it's been quite a year, and I've been immersed into this whole arts environment, and it's been lovely.
Well, let's go to the very beginning, because I met you at the opening of the Whitner Museum.
Yeah.
And I think I saw you at like 2 or 3 other art events, but we never really got to know each other until we started working together
Right.
at the superintendent's office.
Which was wonderful.
where you were a counselor promoting
Right.
healthy students, healthy mental health.
Correct.
And I remember that your desk was very artsy, and in the back of your desk was a painting of a heart,
Right.
which has kind of become like your signature. Was that one of like your very first paintings?
That was actually my very first painting.
Have you always been into art?
I must say that I've been, like, even growing up, right, like the drawing, and I even remember taking part in some contests too, like as a child, but I never really pursued it, more than that. Like I always enjoy like
like a hobby.
drawing, yeah, like drawing, painting, but not to this extent, yeah.
So what made you, specifically with that painting, because I feel that was the catalyst
Right.
for all of this. What was the inspiration behind?
The inspiration, I can tell you vividly, when I
it.
started painting that specific one. I was actually going through some things, personally, and I remember I grabbed that canvas that I had in my garage, and I had it for a very long time. But I painted over it. I had bought that one, and I painted over it, and that's when it started, right? Like my partner at the time had gone out of town. It was kind of like this lonely moment, more to myself. And so in that time, I was going through some like questioning,
Right.
and questions of the heart. And so that's how it started, like painting and the eye, the cactus, and
Which again, they've become sort of like your signature.
Right.
And I have to wonder, why hearts?
the heart.
And specifically
Right.
anatomically correct hearts.
Right. It's such an important part of us, right? Without it, we're not alive, we're not functioning, and it's so ingrained in us and in everything. It doesn't just pump blood, but it connects you to other humans and life itself, right? It's represented there. And so when I started painting hearts, that's what it was, like, how do I feel? What do I feel, right? And sometimes it felt shitty. I'm sorry, I don't know if I can say that. Right? It doesn't always feel good.
Yeah.
It's not always this grandiose feeling that, everything's wonderful, but, you can feel ache, pain, and many other things. And so I guess in that moment, that's what it was, right? Like all these like combination of feelings that I
Right.
was going through, and it was represented in the heart. And I think if you also look at the different hearts that I painted throughout
Right.
that time, they represent a different time or moment.
Yeah,
in my
because
life.
each of your paintings, yeah, like they're all hearts, but they are not, it's not like a copy paste situation.
Right.
Like each of them is in a different state. each of them is evokes a different emotion.
Right. Even the color, it's not always, that red, vivid, or, yeah.
I love your mini series of the heart inside a gumball machine.
Yeah.
And then the next one was like the heart was broken out of the gumball
Right.
machine.
Yeah, so that part too of my life, right? For a moment, I felt my heart was disposable for only 25 cents, right? And that's what it was represented in that gumball. And as I progressed in my own timeline, that heart was kind of reclaimed by myself and out of the
Yeah,
gumball.
it's like I did not pay 25 cents. I broke it out of the machine.
It's quite expensive.
Mine.
It's priceless.
Yeah.
For sure.
So I love sort of that metaphor of the hearts. And at the time, I remember that there was an exhibit at the Hilltop Gallery.
Oh, yeah.
And I told you, like, this is happening, you should put that painting on exhibit. And I think that was the very, very first time you exhibit your work, right?
Right. Yeah, for those of you that don't know, Juan Miguel was the one that introduced me specifically to that part of art, right? How do you expose your art to others? Which is not a very easy thing to say or do more
It's
than
nerve-wracking.
anything. Right. It's
And
like,
especially when you really are the spoiled brat of like the art world, because it's like
what?
it's
That's
like
new to me.
it's because no, literally it's like your very first painting and you were already putting it on an
Right.
exhibit. But you're right, I think there's this very sort of nerve wreckness that comes with
Right.
putting your artwork out there, because you're putting yourself out there
Right.
and you're telling the public this is who I am. I mean, I'm sure that that's not the case for all like this blanket statement for all artists, but for those of us who pour our heart and soul into the
Right.
painting, trying to verbalize our emotions, it can be very intimidating.
Right. And I gotta say that I've been lucky too, because, like I've had the support, like if it wasn't for you, and I'm a big believer, right? Like every person in your life has a role to play, right? And shows you, right? And so if it wouldn't have been for you to be like, let's do it, and almost literally hold me by the hand. Remember?
I remember, because it was like it's
I'm
the
like,
last
no,
day
I'm not
to
doing
submit the
it.
painting.
Right.
We have to do it.
But it wouldn't have been there, right? I wouldn't have exposed myself. And so I've been very lucky to be surrounded by amazing people, and grateful also for
I think
that.
you're the great example of what it is that we're trying to Morley Arts District movement, and this idea that the close proximity to the arts, it's what's going to ultimately be our saving grace. And I think you're a clear example of what can happen when that talent is nurtured and celebrated and encouraged.
Right.
I think there wasn't ever this thing of like, oh well, this is her first painting, she can't exhibit, or she's
Right.
barely starting out, like no. And it was the opposite. It was like, no, you should do it. In fact, your very next exhibit was months later for the Women's Art Show.
Oh, yes.
And that was amazing.
Oh, that was. That was.
That was a March, and it was a women's exhibit at La Linea Art
Right.
Studio that featured all women. And
Right.
you painted, again, it was a heart, but this time with a set of lungs in a desert background.
Right, right.
So what was the significance of that painting?
That was kind of like, breathing in fresh life, right? The lungs also a big aspect of our functioning, right? So it was more like, and my heart at that point was blue, so it was healing,
Oh
right?
my God, yeah.
And so representing, a bit of calmness, and then the lungs were pink, so it was more like, okay, fresh air within me, right? The pink representing my feminine.
That's so interesting. I never made that connection
Yeah.
of the heart being blue and like healing.
And that's when I also exhibit the heart out of the gumball.
That's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
I completely forgot about that.
Yeah, but I also did because the other one was much bigger. I hadn't done a bigger a piece of that size before, so
Right.
I also like push myself, knowing also like to be a part of that women's show was amazing. The talent that was out there that I myself was like, should I be here?
Right. No, it can be, again, it can
Right.
be very intimidating at
Right.
first. But what I love about that exhibit is that it was such a loving environment. Like, I don't want to use
Very.
this buzzword of like safe space, but it really was a safe space.
Right.
And there wasn't this, I feel like more often than not, women are pinned against each other to compete. And that show, there was just such a vibe of like everyone taking selfies with each other's work, everyone asking like, oh my God, like how did you do this? What was it like? Because I was there, but kind of like behind the scenes.
Right.
But what was it like experiencing it as an artist and exhibiting your work for people to see?
It was quite unique, right? Again, it was the second show, but I would say maybe the biggest by far at that point, right? And so it was exciting, to be honest. It was exciting for me to be out there, right? And then what you said about the other women that were a part of it, it was very welcoming, right? Like, I felt like I belonged there, like I was
Yeah.
welcome in, and I was part of it.
That's again, the vibe that day that was amazing.
Yeah.
What is it that you wanted to convey with your paintings in terms of, because you talked about that it very much reflects your emotional state at that time. Do you think your art is more for you sort of taking an x-ray of your feelings, or is it something that you want to put out for the world to see and be like, this is what this emotion looks like?
I must say that it's mainly about me, right? And I do feel like people will perceive it where they're standing in their own ground, and it's really hard to say, I want people to feel or see this, because I don't know what's going behind, right?
Right.
But it is mainly a lot of me, like my internal, that is happening, right? And so hopefully you can see, or, if it just creates something in you, for me, that's it, right? If it made you feel anything, then that's, for me, okay, that's what I want.
Right, but it's more for you of like the way to process your emotions.
Right, and enjoy it. I didn't know how much I enjoyed painting till now that I'm painting.
How does it feel?
I love it, especially with oil, because in those exhibits I was painting in acrylic. I was using acrylic, and I remember you telling me you painted in oil. And then also I had been talking to Mr. Grijalva from the Rio Rico High School. And
Also featured in our Meet Our Local Art Heroes.
yes, amazing artist, Miguel. And he was telling me about oil, and I had never used oil before, and he told me, use this and that and buy this. And so when I started painting and then the classes at the courthouse happened, it was like,
With Armando Moreno.
with Armando Moreno, another amazing artist.
Also feature on our Meet Our Local Art Heroes.
Right. And so painting in oil changed. I haven't used acrylic since, and I don't plan to.
Same. I think I told myself when I started painting, like I want to paint in oils, and like there has been no
It's
going
just
back.
a different process from the mixing, from the waiting. It's got
It
its
takes
own
effing forever to
timeline,
dry.
right?
You
And
have to add like so many layers. But I think that's sort of like almost the meditation process
Right.
that goes in it. And I have to ask you, you're a wellness counselor. You're very much in the world of mental health. How has this impact your mental health journey? Or do you think it was always there, but now it has like exploded?
It has affected it greatly in a positive way, right? I'm able to process things through, and when I say things, I mean situations, people, life itself, right? And so we're always in this continuum of work, right? It never ends. And so it has been a great opportunity to use, right? I mean, I've always been I have to take care of my mental health, or my
Which
surroundings
let
and
me
everything.
small parentheses. I love that about you, because oftentimes that's the thing we sacrifice in
Right.
order to keep going in whatever it is that we're doing.
Right.
And so many times we neglect that aspect, that we need to take a breather, we need to express ourselves creatively, and through that process is how we're able to better
Right.
manage our emotions.
Right, and this painting process has also allowed me to, I'm not just a mom, or I'm many things, I'm a woman. Like, what are my interests? What is it that makes me happy? What doesn't make me happy? And so in the past year, I must say that it's been that whole journey of discovering kind of like, a rebirth of myself, or maybe a reconnection to who I am, like, who's Lorena, right? And it's that $1 million question that the answer isn't always the same, right?
Right.
But it's that continuum of developing or changing and all of that stuff. But with the painting, it has connected me to me. Like, who am I? What makes me happy?
And it's so amazing that you're able to sort of pour who you are and then see it being reflected back at you.
Right, right.
It's very surreal. I'm sure that everyone's like, what are they on?
And honestly, and also to see my paintings from the beginning, and I gotta say that Gumbo one that I started has not been finished, and I don't know that I'm ever gonna finish it. There's there's a disconnect to it now, right? But it was a different time of my life that I feel I've moved, right? So, but it's also been amazing to see how I started and where I'm at right now. And it's like, oh.
It's almost a reincarnation,
Right.
because you do see your previous works and you're like, ooh, who was that person?
Right.
And I'm sure it's going to happen, 20, 30 years from now when you see the paintings that you're creating now.
Right.
And it's like, ooh, I was very, very different.
Right, yeah.
I remember there was a concert at the Whitner, and I don't know what was happening that day. I don't know if Mercury was in
Evan
the microwave.
playing
Dr. Evan Pablo Corey.
Philip Glass?
He was playing Philip Glass, but I just remember we were both like, why is this affecting us? We were both in tears. And I think that was a very explicit example of the power that art has with us, like, like how deeply it can affect you.
Right.
Do you feel that which emotion do you find it most inspiring? Because I know that for me, it's oftentimes where I am going through like a sad moment, an angry moment. That's when I find the inspiration comes in. What is it for you?
Well, I must say that at this point in my life, it would probably be love, and it might sound a little cliche, but I am very lucky to be surrounded with, and not surrounded, by standing by a lot of amazing people, whether it's friends and my family, my kids, parents, and that even like when I wake up in the morning, like right now, that's where I'm at. If you asked me maybe 6 months, 7 months ago, I would have said, freaking, fear. I mean, you've seen me through anxiety, through fear. And you probably know a lot more of the backstory to each of the paintings, right, than anybody else. But, but yeah, like at this point right now, like today, I would say love and what I get from that, right? Like yesterday, I started painting that this new painting, and it was so inspired by a concert that I went to for the Tucson Symphony.
Yeah, I saw that.
I wanted to get home and paint, but that was that, right? So I've also learned that love shows or is in many places, in many people, in many days, not just in one specific individual.
And it's not just romantic.
Right, it's not just romantic, but what makes you feel, right? And so that, I can wake up and see my cactus growing and be like, oh,
Your
that's tomatoes.
Tomatoes, and you're that girl.
Right. And so, but I would say that I've learned too to accept the not so pretty feelings, which is anger, which is fear, which is maybe shame and loneliness, right? Those can be the most challenging ones. But I learned that it's part of it.
Right.
And, I've been a wellness counselor for quite some time, and my background is in psychology and all that stuff, but not until you are in this moment of your personal life and you have to take that deep dive within, it's so grueling and difficult that you don't realize that, oh, shit.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, it's no, again,
so,
sometimes the best form of expression is a cuss word. We welcome all forms of expression. So it's very interesting that you mentioned this idea of love, because we have this book right here.
Yay.
And I would just like to read the dedication, because it was like the most lovely dedication I have ever seen. That it says, a dedication of love to love and intention. And before that it says, this book is for the woman I was, who was instrumental to the woman that I am now. Le doy gracias a quien fui por haberme abierto el camino a la mujer que hoy soy. Who wrote this book?
I did.
So it's Cor by Lorena Tanori.
Sí.
How did this journey started?
I've always, first of all, I'm a helpless romantic.
Get out.
You know that. I've always liked to write. Like, sometimes I'll finish my day, with my notebook, and kind of vomit everything there. And I process things through my writing, right? This book, I've been writing for, I would say to write maybe 4 years now, but this book is specific to 2 years of my life. So about 2 years ago. And it's a selection of poems. So there were a lot of them that didn't make it. And so I felt that whatever's in there needed to be in there, right?
Right.
And so I've always liked to write. I like poetry, Jaime Sabines, I like to.
Well, and then you're also a very avid reader.
Right.
There's not a time that I did not see you with a book in your hand, which is not to romanticize it, but I think a lot of us don't do anymore.
Yeah.
Just read an actual physical book and take time to sit there and like turn the page.
I think it's amazing how you can be transported somewhere else or to live something else through words and pages. And I mean, we spoke about Frankenstein a bit ago, and I had never read the book, and when you told me, and I'm like, I'm in love with the book, how it's written, how it's...
Well, and that's one of the, because I used to be a very avid reader, and I read that when I was like in 5th grade, and I remember loving it. And then just the little nuances in it of, you know, like the fact that it was written by a woman in a time where
so young too.
So young that there's a lot of allegories to queerness, to religion, and to like love.
Right. That sense of self, right? That questioning, who am I? Who created me? Why? For what? What's my purpose? Right. And so that part of the intention, I guess, to assign purpose and to, I guess in this book is...
This is your monster.
Yeah, this is my Frankie. But assigning purpose, I guess, to my grief and loss, right? This book is talks a lot about, and again, it's very, you know, sometimes I still don't believe it, right? Like, to this point, this was something that was so intimate for me, like something that was it's very personal, right? And to be out there, but assigning purpose to my grief, I say, was the most valuable part of it.
Oh,
right?
That's a quote right there, just like assigning purpose to my grief.
Right. And so now it always had meaning, but now it's more palpable.
So what are the poems about?
So the poems talk about grief, about self-acceptance, about this idealization maybe that we create maybe because of a story we bought or an idea of how a relationship, a partner should be, right? This is my pink cloud.
Or is it your revenge dress?
No.
Like, are there any poems dedicated to like a real FU to someone?
No, because without that person in that time, it wouldn't have been como inspired, right? It's about a lot of feeling. It's about, you know, the amazing parts of love too, right? Like that, you know, feeling
it can be very euphoric,
right?
And for those of us who are helpless romantics, it is almost like this junky feeling of like, you know, the dopamine levels are rising, and it's because like I'm going through this with this person,
right? And it's like, oh, when you read them, you know, there's aspects of me where I question maybe my worth, right? My self-worth, or I was romanticizing. And then those parts of that part of my life that were so real and genuine as well. Like, not everything, like everything in life, you know, not everything is perfect, pretty, but it's got this roller coaster ride of, because that's life, right? And but we can definitely escalate things when we romanticize or idealize people, but mainly is kind of like walking through how I was feeling, right? Sometimes I was in a cloud, you know, I was like the happiest person on earth, and there were moments where I felt like, oh, you know, and not until you live it or read them, then you see, oh, red flags.
Yeah. Well, again, that is sort of like the point of art in general, whether it's writing, painting, photography, music. It is having that ability to showcase whatever emotion you're going through at the time.
Right. Yeah, and at the end, it's part of life. Everything in life has something to teach us, right? It's not always a pretty lesson,
right.
An easy one, but there are many things that can come out of of it, right, that are amazing and
Yeah.
that,
Like you said, like even grief, which we often
Right.
associate as this negative emotion, and more often than not, we neglect it. It's like we don't allow ourselves to feel that
to
grief.
feel it, right, because it's not an easy thing. It's not a good feeling. And so when we avoid it, like we band-aid it or simply disregard it, it'll show eventually at some point of your life, whether it's, through people, through situations, through, sometimes it can feel like you're suspended in time and air, right?
Right.
That's how I felt sometimes. Like I was suspended in air and didn't know like my place. And so it took me quite some time to ground and feel like, oh, okay, I'm back.
And sort of circling back to this idea that our little town is becoming very artsy and very arts centered. And just like how you mentioned your process with the paintings and your close proximity to Mr. Grijalva, Mr. Moreno, and how they sort of became like your mentors. You had a mentor with this book as well,
Right. Oh, yeah.
Mr. Joe Wright.
Oh, yeah. That too. I was actually thinking of the. I'm just kidding. No, yeah, definitely. I remember when we were doing the summer camps at the Santa Cruz Center, and I remember telling Joe, hey, I have all kinds of poems, like I would like to publish. And he honestly has been amazing. He has walked me through and supported me through it as well. So I'm very grateful for him. And he made it so easy, right? Like,
Right.
I want to do another one now.
Well, that's why you're like the spoiled brat of our local art scene. It's like, I want to publish a book, and here we
No,
are.
it's not like no, again, like I'm grateful that I've been surrounded by amazing people, at the perfect time. And there's no such things as perfection, but honestly, it just has come when it has had to, right?
Right.
And
So,
yeah.
speaking of timing, when is this book out? Can people purchase
So
it?
yes, this book is out on Amazon already. You can find it there. In the meantime, I will have a book release December 14th at La Línea. Again, thank you, you see, for the space and the opportunity. So December 14th at 2 p.m. at La Línea.
What can people expect at this book
At
release?
this book, it'll be a celebration. I feel this is a celebration of life, of love, of being present, of intention, right? And so we'll do a bit of a reading. I'll have books available if people would like to purchase.
And they can get a signed
Sign.
copy.
There you go. And so, but mainly that, right? To celebrate.
I have to ask why. Well, obviously the cover is the heart, which again it's
My
become
drawing.
your signature, your drawing. But very briefly, tell us a little bit about the title.
Cor. Cor is Latin for heart. And so I like to tap on Latin from time to time. I feel it's such a beautiful connection to our language, right? And so this is my heart pretty much. So it's there, open, available.
And again, it just circles back to that very first heart,
Right.
that's like behind your desk.
Right.
And now here it is in
Here
book
it is.
form,
In a book form.
Yeah.
Yeah, in hardcover.
in hardcover. So Lorena, what's next?
I don't know. I don't know. I guess we'll talk
But that's the exciting part, right? Not
Right,
knowing.
right. I think that's exactly the exciting part. You never know when lightning's gonna strike
Yeah.
for you and how
We
life
can
is
call,
going to
we can
surprise
call you
you.
now an international artist because you've also exhibited at the Museo de Arte
Oh, that's
for Border
true. Thank
Fashion
you.
Week.
Yeah.
And
Also, gotta say that the book is bilingual, so
Hmm.
you'll find some poems in Spanish as well. I like to write in Spanish as well.
who is the book for?
For me. Uh, the book, no, it was for me, that perhaps that inner child that needed to be seen, heard, and loved. But in reality, it's for anybody who is willing to feel it, right? So I guess it's open, it's free
Right.
for anybody that wants to
Experience emotions.
experience it, right? So
Lorena, thank you. Thank you so much.
thank you.
Thank you for letting us be here.
Yeah, no, thank you for
Well-
the time and everything.
Well, there you have it. If you happen to be an art lover and if you are into feelings and emotions, this book will be released December 14th at La Linea Art Studio,
Or you can find it now at Amazon.
or you can find it now on Amazon. Thank you so much again for this amazing interview. Thank you, Will of Nogales, for always providing the space.
Yes.
And we will see you next time on another episode of Meet Your Local Art Heroes.